This Week in History.
Three, two, one, zero, and liftoff.
Discovery, go and throttle up.
All right, Johnny, so first up is a couple of quickies here real quick for the This Week in History. Ghostbusters would be released on June 7th, 1982. Who doesn't love
Hey,
Ghostbusters? And my wife was born on June 8th, 1983.
what
Did I
a
say
great
July
week.
7th? I totally meant June. We're in
Oh,
June.
geez. Just
June 7th for Ghostbusters, June 8th for my wife's birthday, and 1983, best year of existence, I guess, because it brought her into the world for me.
yeah. It's a good year, good week, good
Yeah, good-
movie, good
yeah.
wife.
Yeah, and the things that I have this week aren't awful, really,
I like-
which is kind of a change, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. We could do with some not awful.
Well, the first big thing I have is that the Lusitania would launch on June 7th, 1906, and Woodrow Wilson on June 9th, 1915, would write his second letter to protest the Imperial German government from sinking the Lusitania. So if you're not familiar with what the Lusitania was, it was a British passenger liner that in World War I, the German U-boat sunk.
Right.
And it had some Americans on it. And
They got
Americans
mad about that, huh?
Yeah, we got a little mad about that. The Lusitania was at the time of its launch in 1906, was the absolute largest boat in existence, measuring 787 feet. So Britain at
Okay.
this time was all about building big passenger liners.
It's like
You
2
have
football
this-
fields.
Yeah,
That's
you have
crazy.
this, and then you have the triplet, like the Titanic was actually a triplet
Right.
set of boats. And so all three of those were launched, and they were, the largest when they were launched as well. So
Mhm.
they had a big thing about big boats.
No, you got to be biggest, right?
Yeah, right. On May 7th, 1915, making its way from New York to London, the Lusitania would be sunk by a German U-boat, killing 1,198 of the 1,959 passengers on board, including 128 U.S. citizens. So
Yikes.
almost everybody on that boat was killed. Woodrow Wilson wrote his second letter demanding an apology, but he was also trying to keep the U.S. out of the war because he was still at this point adamant about neutrality.
Yeah.
And
Good
Woodrow
luck keeping
claimed
that up with the people when they kill 100 of our
Yeah.
soldiers.
Well, they're not soldiers; these are just citizens, Johnny. It's
Oh,
even worse.
this wasn't
Passengers.
this was a passenger ship. Oh my god.
Well, sort of. We'll get there.
Okay.
Bear with me.
All right.
So Woodrow Wilson claims that this is a violation of international law because this is a passenger vessel, and the Germans could not sink a passenger vessel.
Right.
Violation of international law. The Germans said, yeah, okay, it doesn't count as a passenger vessel because you were carrying 173 tons of ammunition and artillery shells. So
No, don't worry about that. That was
artillery shells, yeah.
that was for the citizens on board. That's just
Yeah.
that's what we give Americans. Like that's their allotment.
And come to find out, that 173 tons of ammunition was us.
Well,
Germany then went on to claim that Britain's blockade was also a violation of the neutrality trade agreement that the United States had with all parties, which basically said if I trade a box of Cheerios to Britain, I have to also trade a box of Cheerios to Germany. But
okay.
we weren't able to trade our Cheerios with Germany because England had a blockade
Right.
preventing that. So this was their way to fight said blockade. And if you're still trading with England, you're still in violation of that whole neutrality trade agreement.
And I imagine we were just like, well, yeah, kind of, but you guys are the bad ones. So
yeah, kind of. That's pretty much it. We said, nuh-uh, because we're going to try to trade.
No.
It's not our fault that Britain is stopping us from trading with you. To make
And we're
matters
not trying to find a workaround at all.
we argued that the unrestricted sub. So before this, what got Germany in trouble was they used to, the subs used to rise up, on the surface level,
Right.
give a warning to the ship and say, hey, look, we're going to sink you. You might want to get on your life rafts and get the hell out because we're going to sink you,
Oh, that's nice.
which was nice. But then the Britons started putting guns on the transport boats and then shooting it because a sub has once it's up, if it's exposed, it's weak. It doesn't have any real way to go toe to toe with a ship
Right.
at the sea level. it uses torpedoes under the water and its secrecy to be
Yeah.
effective. So once the Britons started to shoot at said subs that surfaced, the Germans said, "Yeah, we're just going to go ahead and use the torpedoes underwater and
Yeah.
secrecy."
So they're
So
like, "Hey, all right, go ahead, save yourselves, get off the boat, do your thing. We're gonna ship it. We're gonna sink this ship." And they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, we'll do that. We're gonna shoot you on our way out, though. Is that okay? Or is that
yeah,
no?
we can't. Nope.
Oh, shoot, my bad. Thought that'd be
So
totally fine, and you wouldn't retaliate."
Woodrow Wilson argued these points again in another letter that he sent to Germany, and eventually Germany did say, "All right, look, maybe we shouldn't have just sunk the Lusitania because it did have Americans on it. But to be fair, we did warn you before you let." Like, they sent warning letters to everybody in all newspapers across the globe. They said, if you travel in this part of the Atlantic and you are carrying any means of weapons or like any war
Right,
equipment, anything for the war effort, this could include food that would go to
right,
troops,
rations, and yeah,
we're going to sink it.
yeah,
So maybe either pick a different route or don't bring supplies to Britain.
yeah. So this is America dropping all the leaflets over Nagasaki and Hiroshima
Yep, maybe
before
duck
saying
and cover.
maybe get out of there. Nah.
uh, Germany did apologize, and they did stop using unrestricted U-boat attacks until 1917 when they continued it because
Yeah.
the war wasn't going great for them at that point.
Cause yeah.
Well, the next thing I got for you, Johnny, or the last thing I should say, is that JFK signs the Equal Pay Act of 1963 into law on June 10th, 1963. This
Okay.
is, this guarantees that women have the same wage as men, and there was never any
Yeah.
wage inequality ever again.
Well, it's so good that he did that in 1963. It's weird that women are still complaining about something that happened so long ago and then was solved by a president. And why are they so mad now?
Well, so the law itself basically states that if two genders are doing the exact same job with the exact same qualifications and the exact same work experience, then the pay has to be the same. That's
Sure.
essentially what the law says.
So that sounds like a real easy way of saying, oh, that he has a couple more job
Could be. Yeah, I mean, it could
responsibilities.
be.
Lots of
Um,
loopholes there.
at this point in time, the wage gap was that women made around 62 cents to the dollar for the
Oh
work
man.
a man made.
I mean, it's up to like 78 to 80 cents now, isn't it?
Well, we'll get there. The act was followed by a ton more acts for equal pay because this one was so effective, including the Equal Pay Act of 1970, the Paycheck Fairness Act of 2005, the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act of 2009, and the Equality Act of 2010.
Nothing quite like making something a law and then have to make it a law 5
Again,
more times.
like, if, if they're not following the first law, why do you think making more laws is going to get people on board?
Guys, we really mean it. We really mean
We're
it.
going to make another one if you don't stop it.
Seriously, you will have no other repercussions, but we're gonna make another law.
So I did do some research into this. The most recent stats I found were actually from 2019,
Okay.
and it says that the wage gap is now women are earning on average 81 cents to the dollar for men, which is totally not fair because that leaves me with only 19 cents for every dollar I make because the wife takes the 81 other cents.
Yeah, that's man. So yeah, I need that to get up because Ashley could be making 19 cents more for us.
Yeah, right.
Like this is some
Well,
bullshit.
but this is a little bit of a, when you start talking about the wage gap, it is a little bit of a misnomer because what that is doing is that's taking every man with every woman and then averaging what they make between all of them and then comparing them. So it is a little misleading. When you actually look at the amount of money that's when it is equal job, equal qualifications, equal work experience, the wage gap has shrunk to 98 cents for women to the dollar on men. So it's still not equal, still not
Right.
fair,
Yeah.
but it is a lot closer when you actually look at same job, same experience, not
Right.
because one of the big problems is I work in a very predominantly female industry.
Yep.
I'm a social worker. Most people who work in social work are female. Just the way it is. Social workers get paid shit.
Yeah.
Do. Now, if you go off to the oil fields, for instance, it's a predominantly male field. Very few women work in the oil fields. And it's a very lucrative job because you're going to probably die in about 3 or 4 weeks because that's a horrendously
Yeah,
awful job,
don't do that.
but you get paid out the ass. And so when you take the top 5 jobs that are controlled by men versus top 5 jobs that are controlled by women, those top 5 that are men are really well paid jobs, and the top 5 by women are really shit
Which
paid
kind of brings
jobs.
us to more of a systemic problem with women being kept out of these fields, and not like
Yeah.
oil
Oh,
workers,
yeah,
but like
yes.
doctors and lawyers and things like that. Like it's not just, oh, women are all choosing this. It's like, well, they're kind of being shoved into
Shoved
this
into it,
area.
yeah. And don't get me wrong at home. I am not saying that there is not a wage gap. There
Oh, no,
is
no, no, yeah,
wholeheartedly a wage gap.
right.
I
I'm just
acknowledge there's a
bringing to
wage gap.
attention the
Yeah.
fact that it's more than just women choose to work jobs that pay poorly. So of course it's
Or
like, well,
even if
no,
that's
like it's 99% of CEOs are white men or something. Yeah, I don't know
okay,
what
or
the actual stats are.
even get like we'll look at law enforcement is predominantly male, right?
Hmm.
And they get paid substantially higher than a social worker does, but I require a degree that isn't required to be LEA. Maybe
Well,
there's a discrepancy here.
we might be seeing some changes with all of that coming up pretty
Well,
soon.
yeah, we're not getting into politics on that one, but yeah, I mean that's a great
It
example. It's
might
like
be
some of
different
these,
in 5 years though.
yeah, some of these jobs that are dominated by man or men aren't like it. Why they get paid that isn't it doesn't make a whole lot of
Right.
sense.
Yeah. It's because men control it, and it's an old boys club, and you
I
need
wish
the
I was a
money.
rich old white dude.
Oh man, I mean,
I'm
nothing
just a
better.
poor, almost middle-aged white dude.
Which is actually, as it turns out, the second best thing to be.
Well, yes, yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
like
yeah. I
it's
definitely
it's
don't.
it's
I
rich
definitely
white
don't.
guy, like kind of rich white guy, poor white guy, and then the rest of it starts.
Yeah, yeah. Then rich white woman.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's this week in history.
Ba-da-boop, boop, ba-doop, boop, boo.